Hello, everyone. Welcome to the 77th edition of Libraries in Response. My name is Don Means, and I am your host today. Let me get this screen share going myself. And we're here today to talk about artificial intelligence. Oh boy. It's a massive topic. We've got two great presentations from Andrew Cox and Erik Boekesteijn.
Very well.
Thank you. I had to call it up and have the internet pronounce it for me. And they're going to take us through their work and their interest, and I think it's going to anchor this conversation really well. I'm going to go through our intro. We are the Gigabit Libraries Network. We're an open collaboration of libraries doing interesting things with technology, and our partner in the Libraries in Response is the International Federation of Library Associations and Institutions, IFLA, based in The Hague, who is at the controls, recording and facilitating the session. Thank you, Stephen. This is our mantra for libraries, is the Swiss Army knife of public institutions. It's difficult to come up with a proper metaphor for libraries, because this very notion, they do so many things for so many people that it's hard to say they just do this. Historically, most people think of them in terms of books, and that's absolutely true, but they do so many more things that people are unaware of, and it makes it a challenge for libraries to make their case. All the other anchor institutions have very specific charters, schools, hospitals, fire, police. Everybody has a really narrow prescribed mission that people understand, however much they value that. Libraries is a much more difficult case to make, but they need to make it because they depend on funding like everybody else. These are some of our topics we've covered in Libraries in Response. State of the States is a thread of presentations by state library officers, chiefs of state library agencies, about what the library's conditions in their states. We've done 17 of these for I don't know how many, 45 or 40 state libraries, and it's a really interesting thread. AI, of course, is one of our topics. This is our fourth edition on this particular topic. We listed the other three in the registration site. Those are all recorded and linked on the Libraries in Response page at giglibraries.net. Climate adaptation is something we keep returning to because there's just no escaping it. Federal broadband programs in the US, broadband from space is a interesting thing that we've been working on, and telehealth and lifelong learning. It just goes on and on. COVID was how we got started 3 years ago. The organizing crisis, I guess you could say. We started out as kind of libraries in reaction, like, what's going on? And then it began to formalize in response as libraries figured out what they were going to do. Then we thought we were actually libraries in recovery in the later 2020, but then we realized maybe we were jumping the gun a little bit because COVID wasn't through with us, and I don't believe it is yet through with us. Climate change is, it's the big one, and it just shrinks all these other issues we talk about, maybe even AI, which is another interesting aspect of AI and how it may actually interface with climate change. But it's the point we're making about this is there's not a lot any individual or any individual institution can do about climate change. Be a good example and show how to what is good behavior. But as far as actually mitigating carbon accumulation in the atmosphere, there's just it's going to be the very largest actors, the largest nation states, the financial ecosystem is going to have to intervene for that to matter. The other part of responding to climate change is adaptation. And adaptation, that kind of works at any level, down to the individual and certainly at the community level. And that's where we think libraries can play a significant role, as helping their communities figure out what this means, how to adapt to it. And it's just, I wish I could skip this slide, but I just can't. It's just
I wish too
indicative of the reality that we're facing. And we're all just seeing the news headlines every day. So here we are to kind of, I guess we could call this a crisis, because we really don't know. We know it's serious. We know it has a big impact, but we just don't know really what. A lot of speculation on it, and we're going to get into some of that today. So I did a search a couple of hours ago, and just general search on AI, and these were the top 3 results: MIT Technology Review, Washington Post, and The Guardian. And I mean, these couldn't be more different as responses, but yet, there it is. They're all relevant. I suppose. I haven't clicked through, but I think these are probably legitimate stories. So that's where we are today. We're going to delve into this massive topic, and what it means to libraries. What can libraries do about it? How to develop a strategy is the really fascinating part of what I think we're into today. And Andrew Cox is going to lead us out on that, because as you saw on the registration, he's been working on a development paper on how to develop a strategy in relation to this new phenomenon. So Andrew, welcome, and please take it away. I'm sorry, give us something, a self-introduction, if you would, please. And you too, Erik, when you come up. So welcome, Andrew, please.
Thank you so much, Don, for inviting me to give this talk, and to everybody who's come along to participate in the discussion. So let me just share my slides, and I've got one that says something about me right at the beginning. So hopefully you can see the slides now. Yes. So what I was going to say a bit about, and I've got too many slides, so apologies if I talk very fast. I wanted to talk about developing a strategic response to artificial intelligence. And I'm a lecturer, that's like a professor at the Information School at the University of Sheffield in the UK. Recently, at another event, I asked people, librarians, what their emotional response to AI is. And it came up with these, what do they feel about AI? And it came up with this long list: curiosity, with multiple spellings, opportunity, excitement, fascination, apprehension. So I definitely feel everybody's in this state of, as Don has already said, uncertainty, and some excitement and some fear as well. But we can't avoid it, really. And I apologize, this is a very UK orientated slide, but I don't want to pretend I know about world policy on AI. But we know, for example, the UK has multiple documents on strategy, not just the UK, but also Scotland has an AI strategy. Our health service, the National Health Service, has an AI strategy. Our funders, UCRI, have a strategy. Many bodies have strategies, although we have done a study of UK universities and libraries, and they don't seem to have a strategy. But I think we don't have any choice, ultimately, but to position ourselves somewhere in this environment where so many institutions have got strategies. So I think it's important to establish, well, what do we think artificial intelligence is? And it's probably, maybe this is disputable, or maybe it's obvious that there's the familiar face of AI, there's spam filtering, transcription and captioning and translation, recommendation, lots of aspects of search, predictive text. These are all essentially AI, I would say. And we're familiar with many of the problems. In fact, I think librarians have been at the forefront of prompting people to understand the problems with things like search and recommendation. You know, the inaccuracy of results, bias, particularly say if you're interested in, say if you belong to a minority language, we're mostly here speaking English. If you're in a minority language, probably you think translation tools aren't that good because they don't translate that well. Privacy concerns around recommendation, filter bubbles, and the power of the big tech companies. All these issues have come up before. They're coming up in an extreme form with ChatGPT, but they've been around for a while. If I'd been given this talk a little while back, I think I would have said the new face of AI in libraries was descriptive AI. And that would be something like, you know, you've got 10,000 video files, someone's donated to you, and all you can do is let users search on the title. AI can improve that search by, for example, voice recognition of what people are saying on those videos, and therefore providing a transcript which you search, and then you can dive straight to the part of the video you're interested in. They could also recognize images, types of objects, places, maybe even people. So it's going to, I think the big application of AI is this descriptive AI. It's going to allow people to search better. We know there's some problems with it. We know it's not 100% accurate. Maybe that doesn't matter too much in the case I've given. You know, you can get some research results that are not good hits, but does that matter? It's better than just searching the title of the video. And it's not realistic to create manual data at that scale. It might be a bit hard to explain exactly how it works and what sort of results people should expect, because depending a bit on how the data has been trained. We certainly might think there'd be issues of bias, because if the AI has been trained on data from, say, the majority voice, like someone speaking English in a educated accent, local voices, local languages won't be picked up so well by that transcription. If that's the case, my search isn't so good for exactly those sort of voiceless groups that with heritage content that we're often offering up, we want to emphasize. So it's maybe reinforcing exactly the kind of voicelessness that we're concerned about. But there are good guidelines about if AI is in our control and we're applying it in this kind of context. I think there are quite good guidelines, like Lee's one in that paper there, that tell us the process we should go through to deal with that content in an appropriate way. The barriers may be more costs of systems versus the skills to build them. That, of course, is the sort of the old new face of AI. We could have mentioned lots of other applications. I think there are a lot of applications in back-end processes. I think there are a lot of applications like chatbots. There are lots of applications in supporting communities of users. And if you want to get a sense of that, I think a good thing to read is a report from the National Library of Scotland, which where someone went around all the departments in that institution and found nearly everybody was applying AI in some small way. Of course, we can't really escape the fact that the new face of AI is really generative AI, with ChatGPT and similar tools out there, being able to write a long or a short piece of text for us, answer questions, write code, solve maths problems, and seeming, from a library perspective, I suppose, to offer a remarkably unreliable source, but a very easy to use and attractive source. So we know there's lots of problems with this, and I'm not going to rehearse all these points. You can look at them on the slides later, but we know from an information perspective, something like ChatGPT is full of holes. It hallucinates information, it gets information wrong, it fails to credit its sources, it even fabricates citations, and it can't itself be cited because it doesn't produce a sort of permanent output. So from the information point of view, it's pretty disastrous. We know that it's highly biased. I was looking on a talk on Monday. It's quite politically biased towards the Democrats as opposed to the Republicans. And it's also racially biased, sexist. It's got all these problems of how it's been trained. There's privacy issues, and underline that, there's, as well as those kind of issues of like, well, how do I use it effectively? But we might see as an information literacy challenge, given its limitations. There's also issues about fundamentally, should we be using it at all? In the sense of, like, for example, we know it was developed in quite an exploitative way with some very low paid Kenyan workers used to do some of the detoxification of the training data. We know there's environmental impacts of GPT, and we just perhaps don't like the disruptive power in the hands of the big tech companies. So there's all sorts of problems here. This is just a quick slide summarizing how I would say we should teach people to use it. But I suppose a balanced response is to say, well, we've got to be a lot of pessimism about the bias, the impact on social equality, the impact on trust in information, maybe, the tendency for things like ChatGPT just to churn out loads of content and further overwhelm us with content overload. On the other side, there's definitely some positives in terms of access to knowledge, sort of like translation tools are going to allow you to read things in other languages, which opens up, you know, a whole realm of new ideas. It'd be easier to create information. And there's definitely a role for information professionals in kind of explaining this complex environment. So I think some positives and some negatives. And so thinking about those things, I started to, and this is perhaps the focus of the presentation, is really to think about, well, so what kind of things do we do about this? What can be our approach to responding to this strategically? So we could just wait and see what happens in the sector, or maybe it's more important to see what happens in our institution, particularly around something like ChatGPT. Maybe we're recruit new staff, or maybe we have to get staff to experiment individually to learn how the proliferation of tools can fit into their everyday work. Is it maybe more about engaging with users to see how they're using AI? Maybe the users or the department, the academic departments we support, if we're in an academic context. Is it about running proof of concept projects? I know a lot of libraries are trying to do that. Or is it about collaborating with other libraries? Or is it ultimately about talking to system suppliers, because we know we can't develop these things ourselves? I was hoping, I know I've got very little time, but I thought it would be worth asking you your opinion about these strategies. So I've got a WooClap poll open. So if you go to wooclap.com and put this event code in, you should be able to vote on these different strategies. I shall stop sharing this PowerPoint, and I'll go to sharing the WooClap. So you just have to go to wooclap.com, enter that code, which is at the top of the screen here, NZXRGZ, and you can vote. Don't know if anybody's got time to do that. It'd be interesting if people have. I'll just pause momentarily and let people think about it. See if they can log on.
Andrew, post that in the chat, would you? Just for...
Yes, good idea.
Keep a record.
Good idea.
It's wooclap.com and the code is NZXRGZ. moment, nobody seems to be voting, which is, no, it's sprung into life. Hurrah.
Very
At
good.
least one person has voted, so that's good. It's beginning to move about, because I think it'd be really interesting to see what this audience thinks, and we can, when we share the slides later on, we can include a screenshot of this result. But it's looking like collaborating with other libraries is up there as a really important strategy, and encouraging staff to experiment individually. I was at a talk yesterday, somebody who was working in health context, we were just talking about the multiple ways they're using ChatGPT in their own work, doing searches and summarizing documents, and even using ChatGPT to convert those horrible references that are all in uppercase into a proper mix of upper and lowercase language. So it can be used in many different ways. Engaging with users to see how they're using AI. I think that's a really important one in the context of ChatGPT, because I know in my own institution, some departments are thinking this is marvelous, this is a fantastic tool, great for teaching, like architecture are using it to create images of spaces they want to design. Other departments are really worried about it and want to ban it. So we need to get out there and talk to our users and find out how they're using it. We're also doing a little study about how students are using it. So I've got a little bit of a result there. So let me stop sharing that and just quickly go back to the slides. Let me share again. This is just a quick, well, we can, what I've produced from work around this is a blog entry about an event I ran, but also there's a document there that you may want to look at later, which is an attempt to kind of talk about strategy. I want to just round up, because I'm aware I've probably reached my time already. Just quickly say something about.
You're fine. You're doing fine.
Am I? Okay. So I'll just quickly say, I think AI's impact on jobs is a key thing. So the Financial Times, a big newspaper in the UK, carried an article by Suskind and Suskind, who basically said, generative AI will upend the professions. They've been saying this for a number of years. Other predictions say that it's routine jobs that are at risk. But I think the Global Partnership on AI had a really good sort of framework for looking at the impacts. And they said, it's not just about maybe some of our work will be augmented, even rehumanized. Some will be replaced, but there's also things like your work being controlled by AI. And I think that might be the direction things are moving. A recent study by Boston Consulting showed that leaders were really optimistic about AI and frontline employees weren't. Surprise, surprise.
Mm.
So what is the impact? I just want to quickly close on 2 points about the positives of libraries' role in AI. First of all, if you look back to World Economic Forum's 10 skills to thrive in this context, look at them, they're not even digital skills. They're not focusing on data. They're looking at things that probably computers can't do, having emotional intelligence, service orientation, negotiation. These are things we're probably pretty good at. And I think we can see that AI may have a range of impacts across our work. So its impact will be wide and in some areas deep. But I think there's a role for us to play across this picture. And my closing point really would be to say, if we can understand what users need and we can come up with a vision of how AI can be used, that's really the killer approach. That's going to be the beneficial approach that we can offer. We don't have to stop being librarians and become data scientists or experts. It's more about coming up with a vision of what AI is for that works in our context. So I'll close on that note. I think I've probably gone on too long, but
No.
No, that's great. So are you intending to create a mapping tool? I mean, a strategy development tool, something that would walk through some steps to answer certain questions, that at the end of which would be outline of a strategy that could be implemented by any individual library?
Something like that. What we've been working on, or what I've been working on, is like a set of questions that relate to different aspects of AI. And it's in that working document. You'll see it on these slides when I share them. And you can use these questions to sort of just ask, to prompt investigations in your own context, and to think through how AI might fit into your strategy. And I think it's an option to say is not the most important thing in our world. As you already said, is environmental crisis or well-being, perhaps. But it's in the context of, say, you've got a process of developing a strategy. The purpose of my document is to help you think through the issues related to AI specifically.
Yeah. Well, that's a lot. And you mentioned, what it means to users. And are you speaking in terms of users as librarians, or users in terms of library patrons, or anybody?
I was thinking in terms of patrons, really, but it could be, a lot of my work is in the university context, so it's not just students, it's obviously staff too. And the whole ChatGPT has created a fantastic opportunity, I think, to have those conversations about, everybody's confused, everybody's got an emotional reaction to this, some of fear, some of optimism, but it creates an opportunity to have a conversation where actually I think information literacy, understanding where information came from, is central to the debate, and therefore it's like a fantastic opportunity to have those conversations and make the library.
So in a way, a discussion of this topic takes us back to fundamentals. What is at the basis of information? What are we actually talking about that we're automating, or that is now able to interact on a nearly peer basis with us? Have you considered asking people what this can do for them, I think is a pretty tricky question, since they're not quite sure what it is. Your word cloud was excellent. I thought it captured as much of the kind of reactions, the emotional responses, or the thoughtful responses to this phenomena, if we can call it that, as anything I've seen. And the notion of having patrons convene around this topic to demo it, to have people work with it in the library, just sounds like a great opportunity. Anyway, so we'll come back to a number of things you touched on, Andrew. This is really extraordinary work. It's a vast undertaking that you've got going on there. I can appreciate that. For now, we're going to turn to Erik, and Erik is going to relate to a strategy, I guess we could say, at the national level in the Netherlands about how this fits in. And I don't know if there's another such activity going on, but Erik, we certainly want to hear what's happening there. Please take it away and welcome.
Yes, Don, and I also want to say that I saw some interesting things in the chat as well. Let me see if I can.
Yes.
You can see my slides.
Yes, we can. If there's any of that you want to address right now, otherwise we'll.
Well, not so much me, but I think like it's important that we try to keep some time for it. Wait a second, I'm trying to. Hey, I lost my slides. Are you still seeing them or not?
Yes, we do.
I can't seem to open the slideshow. Why not?
Covering up your,
It's covering up my screen and I can't take it away.
Yeah.
That's annoying. But anyway, I'll go through it, see if it works like this.
this is the setup screen for your slides. It's
I know,
not in
but
play.
somehow it
Okay.
doesn't work to put it to presentation because it's.
We can see them. Okay, it's fine. We'll go with this.
We go with this, otherwise we waste our time. I'll just do it like this.
All right.
Basically, it's about the words, isn't it? Well, first of all, I'm Erik Boekesteijn, working at the National Library, where also the IPLA headquarters that Stephen is at is in this building that you saw on the first slide. My job at the National Library is basically I help libraries innovate so they can come to me with different sort of questions. And recently there have been quite a bit about AI frequently, but also about other things, young adults, SDGs, different topics. I was recently in Computers in Libraries in Washington and did a workshop there. And thank you, Andrew, for sharing your great thoughts. And what I noticed there is that the difference in level. I saw Todd saying in the chat, ChatGPT is old. For some people, it may be old. I am no tech guy. I know quite a bit about libraries, but I'm not a technician. But I know for some people, ChatGPT is very new and they know very little about it. So the differences in level of knowing about AI is huge, and that's one of the things that is a challenge. I used this sort of slide during the workshop.
AI has the potential to revolutionize the way libraries
Can you hear it or
and
not?
provide services to their
Yes.
patrons. Here are a few examples of how AI could be used in libraries. 1. Personalized recommendations. AI algorithms can analyze a user's reading history and suggest books or other materials that they might be interested in. 2. Chatbots. Libraries can use.
So I'll stop it here because you can do something like this yourself. You probably all know about it. I've seen some friends in the company here that know quite a bit about it. So, but like I said, the whole presentation, you could have it done by ChatGPT if you want to. There's so many options that you can use, but as was said earlier, it's quite often just very wrong. AI so far lacks common sense, just the regular things we know. It may recognize this as a cup of coffee, but if it's empty, it will say it looks like a toilet. And there are like millions of examples like this. So as I said, common sense is something that's definitely that needs to be brought to the table. I know quite a few must have seen this yesterday. There was a sort of a discovery or a sort of they checked human book recommendation versus AI recommendations, and the outcome was obvious. The human recommendations were often much better, much more personal, and there was quite a few things lacking about AI, which doesn't mean that I think there's great opportunity for AI. I'm not saying anything against AI, but as I said earlier, for me, librarians are not search engines. They never have been search engines. They're way much more. And I think AI and other tools are the knob to the door to open, and that'll bring you in. And that's where our work as librarians start, basically. That's when we act with our users and everything else. David Langton is a very good friend. And he came up with this word cloud that he showed me recently on AI, and we had him over doing a presentation on AI in one of the KB colleges, the National Library. I organize colleges every now and then on topics, as well as Don does very well. And that there is so much that AI can do, but we have to, as libraries, we have to make it more transparent, and we have to bring in the pieces, like the garbage that sometimes is in our data that Don showed earlier in one of his slides, is the garbage that will come out. There's nothing against it. And I think in this survey, where it says that the library since 2006 has been seen, the building of the library has been seen as an increasing way, as a nice place to be, as an essential place to be, only when it comes to the only place where you can find information, we see a decrease. But overall, the library building and the place where people like to meet person to person is still very much becoming more popular. I helped design a couple of libraries in the world. Doc 1 is one of them. I'm not going to spend any much time on that. The airport library, where you have different ways of story sharing, from Sydney to the one in Story House in Chester, Andrew. Chester is my baby and my favorite library in the world. This one is actually a place that you must visit whenever you come to the UK. And that's just a good example of a library that's really owned by the people. And I think this is the way to start when it comes to technology, to lay it in a transparent way against the people and to help them think with it. What do we want? What do we want? Not just us as information professionals, but the whole world. Because, well, there's so many things out there. I'm just going through the slides very quickly because of time, and I want to save time for the conversation.
Going fine the time. No need to rush.
We have 1 hour. I just want to hear you guys as well. So from the misinformation bits to this one you see here. Oh, this one. There's this one I use quite often. Our collections. When it comes to our collection, this is where AI can play a role. There will be so much in the collections online that we need help to find what we want, but we also need, and that's what I learned, I think, in Washington, we need to look at ourselves not so much as search engines, but maybe as prompt engineers. When I was brought to Story House to help out to design the building and the organization, we came to the conclusion that libraries are all about curating curiosity. The job of a librarian is to send people away with more questions than they come in with. And I think that this also applies to possibly AI, like if it raises questions, if it triggers you to be curious and to even come up with more questions than answer. Let's glorify the question. That's basically the idea. And I think if technology can help us to do that, it's a great thing. This I found very interesting, that the public opinion, this was a survey done, and it says like, who should be in control if super intelligence arrives? And this was quite some time ago, and already there was a lot of people saying that they would trust the machines and they would go for a combination at first, but probably go over to the thing as well. Another slide on how libraries can look at AI and what they can do, and involving the library users, the patrons, in the societies and the stakeholders. All leading up, this was another presentation, I think, at Computers in Libraries a couple of years ago, to building in the Netherlands. We did a few sessions. I helped to organize a few design thinking sessions on what should be the ethics in libraries around AI at the time. And we came with a group of stakeholders and library directors and library employees to these 7 ethics, like AI should be neutral, it should be transparent, it should be safe, it should be human-centered, humans in the loop, it should be inclusive, accessible, and robust. But when you get this and you get this slide, we can talk about it in the Netherlands and have an understanding, but it may have a different meaning in other countries. So at this moment, they're talking on a European law defining ethics around AI. And I hope there will be something there soon, that it will help us to cater our work within this. Here you see humanistic ethics. The 3 elements of the humanistic approach are outlined as commitment to plurality of values. We need our users, stress on the importance of the procedures, not just the outcomes. I think that's very important, that we should share the procedure, not only look, what do we want from this? And once again, the participation and understanding of human well-being and morality. And these are very important things when you look at ethics. The reason you asked me, Don, is also about the Netherlands AI Coalition. I think in the Netherlands, Andrew, we sort of came up with the approach, especially from the cultural sector, museums, archives, libraries. We came out to a mixed effort, a combined effort, and we called it the Netherlands AI Coalition. And they managed to get quite some money from the government to set up discussions, to organize workshops, and to look at the impact of AI on cultural institutions as a whole. And this worked out very well. This helped really to come down to different approaches. One of the things we did also, I'm sorry that I can't share slides in the way I wanted to, is the AI parade. I will get to that later. They came up with a position paper where you came from creating value to a business model, to ethic and juridical conditions, cadres, diversity, leading up to inspiration and production and distribution and the way it is received. I think this was very good. The realization, the diversity that we need, that the next Watson, maybe Bridget, who knows? And as I said, the AI parade is a tour. It's an exhibition basically that travels to first 17 libraries in the Netherlands in 1 year. And the goal was, the Netherlands has 17 million people, about a little more now. And it's aimed to reach 1 million in 1 year. And it reached 1.5 million people in less than a year, like 9 months, I think, already. So it's quite a success. It's an exhibition and it's a programming. So you have speakers coming to the library. It's different events that are being organized next to some examples of the impact of AI already. And so the great thing is that they're going to go on with this exhibition in the next year, and they want to go to another 35 libraries in the next year. Which for me is another reason to look at how can I organize an SDG parade for next year. But that's another topic that that could work very well when we think about the climate and other stuff. One of the things they do at the parade is also the AI cooking book. We all have heard before probably that AI is basically sort of a recipe. What ingredients do you put in to come up with something that you want? And this AI cookbook is a sort of a toolkit to help information professionals to learn how they can deal with these questions that the patent may come with. Another slide on how AI works. Like I said, I want to save some time. How do you library? Very good friend of mine, Jean Chan from Singapore. He went away from libraries and he recently came back. I'm happy that he's back. He talked to me, he said, Erik, I'm coming back and I have an idea on creating a new lab in Singapore, Lab 25. You can check it out. And he sees the library as a theater of issues, among which, of course, technology is one of them. And where he wants the library to be such like an AI parade. He wants the library to showcase people and their ideas, solutions to challenges that are out there for all of us. He talks about a choreography of solutions, which I like very much. The man has a way with words and is a great library thinker. If you don't know, check him out. We all have heard in this group, I mean, I'm talking to experts in this group, which makes it rather difficult, is the gamification of technology, the way we can involve library users in doing research to take away work from doctors and to find cancer cells anonymously, of course, and to find a cure for Alzheimer to help to save really a lot of time for that. Together with Rolf Habel, director of the former director of the Library of Doc 1 and R, he thought about different scenarios. Maybe I'm stepping a bit away from AI, Don, but we looked at the scenario of mass surveillance. If this scenario comes into practice, which already, of course, it is in some ways, what role will the librarian play? So it would be privacy activists, big data, algorithm educators, fact finders, all there. Another scenario could be community memory banks. Once again, AI is playing a huge role. The role of the librarian as anti-discrimination activist, heritage organizer, public history campaigner, community convener, it goes on and on and on. It's very useful, I find, to have this sort of different scenarios and these different ideas of what library in the future, maybe innovation hubs, and this one, which may be even more important in the future. What are libraries in a time when well-being becomes the most important thing? Climate healing. Will we just be storytellers? Will we be literature and art specialists, design trainers, meditation experts? There are so many things that are out there. What technology can do and hopefully will do is create some sort of librarian for life. If we have a definition of what that can be, someone who is always there in your mind and who is willing to look at issues from a librarian's perspective, and willing to stay curious and look for further information, further and different perspectives, other ways of truth. I don't know, but this librarian should be like a special location in your head. We need to think about how to bring that about. Off by for all, I know Nina is going to speak at Internet Librarian online this year. Nina Simon is a good friend. This is off by for all method is a good way of talking to your users and get your users involved more. I think I'll leave it at that because my slides don't do what I want, and I am way much more interested to listen to you than to talk myself. So none of you don't mind. I'll open up the floor for
Outstanding, Erik. Thank you. Please activate your camera if you would.
Oh, sorry.
You touched on so many things there quickly, and we're going to open it up for more questions. But the parade is like a multi-day event at each library. Is there a curriculum for that?
Yes. It stays in the library for usually 3 weeks. Library, of course, have a choice in this. If they want it for 4 weeks, it's also okay. 2 weeks is also okay. But it's around 3 weeks, and the programming is also optional. So basically, there's a list of speakers or people who can say something from different industries and stakeholders and partners that you can bring into your library. And there's a sort of an editor group that defines the needs for each library to address.
Are they all live? That is to say, only live, or are they also online?
No, it's basically meant to be live. If it's no other way, we can do it, of course, with the screen. But as I say, this topic is so important that I think it helps to have a real person in the room because like I said, people are not always open to ask all the questions online, which they are more easily willing to do when there's actually a person in the room that they can speak up to and say, I have a question.
I agree. This point about literacy, I keep coming back to this. We talk about, the digital divide. We talk about literacy divide. I want to be, digitally literate. It's like there's this, bifurcation between these fields, which are immense. The range of skills on all these areas is so large. You can't just say I'm on one side or the other. You're just somewhere on a very long range of capabilities. And that from one end could just not even really relate to the other end in terms of so that's a question of how anyone is going to be qualified as literate on AI.
Definitely
like that. But you made me think of talking about these models and the training and the built-in biases of these models from these Kenyan inputters. Do you see a potential, this is kind of for anybody, a potential for librarians to train a model? I mean, the idea you gave of having a librarian on your shoulder, right?
Yeah.
It has the attitude of a librarian as opposed to a butler or a, some kind of a other assistant is fascinating notion. And I don't know that people would, settle for, I only want a librarian. I don't want a butler, and I don't want, a counselor, all these other things that people want. But the notion that librarians, it's the trust issue, that if librarians could curate a model that could become trusted, it seemed like that would be an extremely powerful thing. I just have no idea the scale of that project, how many thousands of librarians it would take, spending how many thousands of hours. But
well, the
if it were
mindset,
trusted,
Tom, if I may
cost.
interrupt you, the mindset, the change of mindset, like I said, I always like to have the idea of putting people's, like I always say, libraries are about keeping stories, sharing stories, and making new stories, helping people to make new stories. But if you can have the people trust us enough, which they obviously do at this point, and allow us to put their stories on the shelf, we can, as a library, harvest those stories and collect them and use the data. We will make the data in period of time more diverse, and we'll have a better representation of the people in our society than we have right now. Kriti Sharma, if you don't know her, check Kriti out. She came up with AI for Good. She set it up, young Indian woman. And I had her over in the Netherlands to do a presentation some time ago. And she said, if you look at Indian women, you basically, in the data, you'll find a few Bollywood actresses, but not much more. So there's an enormous task, an enormous job to do. And I think I also saw something published by on open science, which is different. But I think we need to look at a different way that we can involve libraries in creating more data. And that comes to your point, Don. And public spaces, maybe a bit, but maybe even away from public spaces. We should be more active in creating more diverse data. Definitely.
I think people, just naturally look to librarians for guidance on information technologies, information itself, and this certainly fits that. So let's see, I just covered up the chat. Here we go. There are a number of things that have come up that Elizabeth mentions. Elizabeth posted a resource. Elizabeth, you want to say something quickly about that? If I have your name right.
Yeah, you have my name right. Yeah, I'm from the National Library of Sweden, and we have a kind of AI lab with, I think it's 6 or 8 researchers within the field that supports and provides help for other researchers. It's like an infrastructure that could be used by Swedish researchers. They can apply for computing time, and the source material we're using is the legal deposits of Sweden. So if they make an application for the research content, we bring out the materials from the stacks and digitize it and prepare it for the research questions. And in the top of the chat, you have some references to articles that these researchers have published. So we have our own BERT model and language model, and it's open for everyone to use. You can use everything that the library have developed.
Great.
I like that very much. I like that very much. I forgot to say that we have 2 library labs in the Netherlands that are assigned to one to the Delft University, and there's one other, I don't know where it is now, right now, but the Delft University came up with an AI function, sort of a ChatGPT function for one of the oldest books that we have in the Netherlands, the Vis book, which is all about sea creatures. It's from the 16th century, I think. And you can basically ask the library users, the patrons can ask the book a question. So you can basically ask, are there any selkies, the Irish mythological being in the book, and the book will answer right away, like it's on page 364. You'll find information on the selkies, which are Irish mythical, blah, 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 blah. So these sort of examples are very interesting for users that know nothing or little about this sort of technology to see what it can serve, what sort of purpose it can be serving in the future.
There was a question from Fiona on liking the AI parade. Curious to know what was involved in creating the list of speakers. How did you invite and sort and prioritize?
Well, that was, of course, like I said, there's so much power in a coalition. If you talk to people in museums, in archives, in galleries, and the whole GLAM sector, everybody knows someone who has an expertise in some of the topics. So you create a list on different items, and that changes, of course, because like ChatGPT is maybe old, but on the other hand, for some people it's new, and there will be more questions. Can we have a speaker on this or that? So basically, the network has grown so big that there's always someone who knows a speaker who can address a certain topic. So that's interesting. I also have another, that besides the coalition, there's also a Ministry of the Future, and there are ministries of the future also in the UK and in different countries. And I think those groups can also be interesting to talk to and to involve in your thinking if you want to set up something like this.
You're saying there are actual ministries in those countries for the future?
They have ministers. They have. I have a WhatsApp group that's like, it makes me crazy because I got so many ideas and so many things in the app group that sometimes it's too much. But they're very good people. They're really experts in that group that also provide me with a lot of inspiration.
That's the name of a recent novel, or Ministry for the Future. Frightening look.
They bring children's shoes to the table. If they go to talk to politicians, which they do often, they bring the children's shoes to the occasion and say, we were doing this for a generation that is not born yet. We want to put these topics on the agenda.
They need to be considered. Absolutely, yes. Stephen Abram mentions they're building the world's largest AI research think tank at the University of Toronto. Faculty of Information. Stephen, you want to say quickly about that? We're just in the last couple of minutes, so please. Mute, Stephen. Unmute.
There, I
Okay.
thought I'd unmuted it. Thanks. Yeah, it's a really interesting initiative. We got a wealthy person to donate $600 million to get it built. The interesting part was the question of who should be at the table. Where are the cross-disciplinary aspects of this? And part of it is the ethical research area on how to develop guardrails for AI development. And so I'd be interested in the speakers talking about the guardrails and who should be there. And I think that the IFLA WIPO model for copyright and intellectual copyright is an interesting model where we bring together lawyers and librarians and technologists and try for balance. And right now everybody's fighting to try and be in control instead of collaborate. And I think our librarian culture of collaboration to bring in the right people, we need to be at the table, but we won't be at the table correctly if the table's only us. So I'd be interested in Andrew's and Erik's comments on that.
Okay.
Hi, Erik.
Hi, Stephen. It's been too long, my friend.
Andrew, you want to take a shot first there?
Yeah, and it's about involving all stakeholders. Responsible AI at its heart must be involving all stakeholders, but that's challenging because many, for example, I mean, take ChatGPT in our institution, and maybe that's not a story for many people, but I think there's a strong need to involve students in the discussion about how we respond to that, rather than faculty like us taking a decision. So yeah, involving all stakeholders sounds like a
I think it's interesting that the data so far shows that teachers and professors are using AI at about 2 to 3 times the rate of students. So the research is the opposite of some people's opinions. And I would love to have a grant to drill down on that.
Well, I think overall, Stephen, that we all should be accepting the fact that we can learn from other people. Like I feel not very much of an expert on this, and I'm learning every day. And I love the fact that I'm learning every day from no matter who or whatever. You know, it's just the fact that there's so much to learn, and that's, as I said, glorify the question. We need to be open to learning and look at everyone who can teach us. And I think that's a good thing.
It seems like one of the pervasive questions that I see and hear and relate to are, what skills are needed that both will prove impervious to this technology and also can make the best use of the technology. And it seems like the ability to provide evocative prompts is a skill that is kind of key. Asking the right question the right way seems to be a really key thing. And then I think Erik gave us a list of things that were immune, or maybe you did, Erik. I remember Andrew or Erik, resumed abilities that looked like they were going to be resistant to AI. Which of those would you each put at the top of the list? Well, maybe we'll try to kind of close on this, and just so how would you guide people on things you think are somewhat immune to artificial intelligence, if you think any are? Andrew?
Actually, Erik gave a really good answer off the bat already of learning to learn. That's something that educators have been talking about for a long time. Hopefully we promote it, but it's actually hard, isn't it? Those emotions I talked about at the beginning surround learning. Learning isn't always a happy process. It's challenging, it's difficult, but if we've learned to cope with that and learn the skills to learn new things, that's got to be one of the key things that will be an evergreen skill.
And to add to that, common sense, as I put in my presentation, I think basically we're all like putting this up, someone putting it on a pedestal, someone on a very scary place, and I think we should trust our common sense. If we are willing to listen to our common sense, and we're open to learning, as Andrew says, we can go a long way. And it's there for us. We are not there for the technology. It's the other way around. It's human-centered, as I said earlier.
You say that, and yet I feel the pull of the technology. The technology changes us. The technology wants us to provide it with input faster, ever faster, and it changes us. So it seems to want something, even as we think we want something from it. It's a remarkable kind of phenomenon. We'll get into Mars McLuhan one of these days and dive deeply into media and see if it can't unlock any of this. We kind of skipped over the guardrails question. Would either of you like to take a shot at the guardrails? What are they? How do you define them? How do you implement them? Besides just turning it all off?
Unplug. Take out the plug. It's the one thing we can always do.
Plug.
No, I think if you have the ethics right, if you have a good debate on the ethics, and you constantly think of what does this mean when you say transparent? How far do we take this? How far do we want to take it? It's something we need to have. We have to discuss this all the time. Like, what do we mean with sustainable? I think Andrew already mentioned the fact that the climate is going to be so important, and what sort of effect does all this technology have on our climate? Of course, one of the bigger thing is that it's all in the hands of big tech, because they are the ones who have the money to do the training models. They're so expensive. So we have to find our own training models. That's why I'm saying we have to look at our own. We have a source of data that is gold. That's amazing. We can enrich that even more, and we have to realize our power. What we can do is the data. So there's some way that we look at ethics as a guardrail, talk about what it means, and trust in our own sources, our own treasures.
Well said. Andrew?
A couple of the principles I've seen that seem to really resonate in the educational context, and I've seen in the health context too, is like, first of all, who is the beneficiary? Who is actually always asking who is the beneficiary of AI implementations? And also always asking about what is the impact on equality. And I think a lot of the AI that we encounter in everyday life, well, it's profiting somebody, but it's not me. It's Google, it's Amazon, it's Microsoft. That's the real problem of the technologies. That's what you feel that technology is trying to control you, Don. And it is. It's trying to take money out of your pocket, probably, and take your data and exploit it. So I think that's, whereas I think library applications can be ethical.
I think you put your finger on it. I suspect and hope that there is actually a much larger role for libraries and librarians in this whole development. The trust deficit is off the charts. I mean, trusting the large tech companies, that just seems to be over, but there's no escaping it that anybody tells. And so there's just nowhere else to look that comes up or you would actually want to listen to and believe. And I think this is more than just how to ask a clever question or how to protect yourself from AI spam or something like that. I think there's something deep that's available for libraries to play a role. I'm going to try to keep thinking about that and reconvening about this. And we're over the hour a little bit, but this is not a TV show, so we're not. But we do want to respect your time, and we do want to thank you so much for coming on and sharing your insights and your experiences and your activities. Andrew, if there's anything else you would like to draw out of this group, I had a chance to kind of react without thinking very much to your survey questions on your link, but that was interesting. You're also building this tool. If there's any invitation you'd like to put out there, we'll do a follow-up email to the whole group with the recording, and we can add that. I'll follow up by email with both of you if there's anything else you'd like to add to the conversation or questions or whatever, because we're just so happy to have you. This was just, I thought I would come away more aware after the session. I feel like I'm less aware of what's going on. I have more questions than answers.
That's
but
great.
That's the way, learning to learn, right? Okay. So thanks again. And please come back. We have to keep this a running conversation. That's the only prayer I think we have. So with that, I will sign off and thank everybody for giving us another time here. And I will stop the recording now.